You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Ask Drone U. This week in drone news, well, it looks like the Flying Dutchman joins us again as a new drone has been secretly under wraps. No one has released any news on it yet. What is it? Well, stay tuned to find out. In other news, drones have saved lives, and also it looks like DJI has something up its sleeve once again. But bringing all that news to us and more is our good friend, the Flying Dutchman, also known as Haya Costello from Drone DJ. Haya, welcome, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Paul. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well, very well. Thanks for having me on the show again, man. Looking forward to these news episodes we do together.
Oh, they're a lot of fun every week. And it's interesting because I really feel like these news shows help even provide me with a deeper pulse on the industry. I think you as well. So really, really excited to really go into everything that's coming up. So let's just get started. In fact, the first story today actually is about a new Autel drone. Haya, it looks like this year, where we have had very few drone releases, has really just been essentially setting the stage for a mass debut of drones as more and more manufacturers are really listening to customers as far as what they want from drones. And in fact, in a recent article that you can actually find on Drone U right now and will soon be up on Drone DJ, is all about who will make the Honda Civic of drones. I'm talking about a drone that can not only do great photography and great videography, but can also do great photogrammetry, or as we like to say, drone mapping. Well, it seems like Autel actually read that article before I posted it because they have been sneaking around with a new drone that would solve all the problems that the Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual falls short on. Well, what am I talking about, Haya? I'm talking about a dual sensor drone, a portable, flexible vehicle that has two powerful sensors, not two, well, lackluster sensors. I'm talking about a high megapixel global shutter sensor combined with a high megapixel thermal sensor. Now, is it radiometric? Not sure. Haven't flown it yet. But Haya, I've been seeing photos. In fact, I'm going to have a photo here of what we think the Autel Evo Dual will look like, because it's a much bigger Evo. It has more propulsion to carry these larger sensors. And frankly, Haya, I'm really excited about this drone because if we can have a thermal drone that can also do mapping with no geofencing, well, now you have a real powerhouse tool for the enterprise users.
Do you have any specifications on the new Autel Evo Dual? I mean, how does it compare, for instance, to the DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual in terms of specs for the thermal and the regular camera?
So I don't have physical specs yet, but what I have seen as far as imagery and data from the drone itself, it looks like we're talking about a 20 megapixel global shutter camera like the Phantom 4 Pro combined with a 640p thermal sensor. Now, this is just speculative. I don't have firm technical updates just yet, but I will say it's really, really interesting because it seems like the industry is really trying to keep things under wraps because, well, we all know there's one bulldog in this industry and they're always trying to maintain the attention. Whether they continue to do that or not, well, we shall see. Now, Haya, I know that you have actually learned something as well about how the new DJI Mavic Mini and its usage of particular parts. So in this next piece of news, what information or connections are you gaining from taking apart the Mavic Mini?
Yeah, we had somebody in one of the Facebook groups who shared images of the DJI Mavic Mini, but then internal images. So images taken when the drone was pretty much taken apart. And one of the things that stood out right away when I took a look at these photos is that there's actually an umbrella sensor or processing sensor, processor inside the drone. And that's definitely noteworthy because if you remember when the DJI Mavic 2 was launched late last year, I mean, it was originally scheduled to be launched on July 18th. If I'm not mistaken, but that got delayed until late August. And there are different stories as to why this may have been delayed. But one of them is that DJI was scrambling to get the 4K footage the quality of the video footage from the DJI Mavic 2 Pro to a higher level. And the lack of that higher quality was due to not using an umbrella sensor, apparently. We're not quite sure what the details are here, but either way, DJI was trying to make the video quality as best as possible for the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. There was no umbrella sensor or processor in that drone. Now looking at the pictures for the DJI Mavic Mini, it's definitely very interesting that there's a reappearance of the umbrella sensor. And especially because we know that the DJI Mavic 3 Pro is due to be released in January next year, I'm going to assume that we'll see the umbrella processor making a return in that drone as well. And that should bode really, really well for the 4K video footage that we're going to get out of that unmanned aircraft. So I think it's very positive in that regard.
Yeah, very interesting. So the umbrella is the processor, not the sensor. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not the sensor, it's the processor. So the video footage that you capture is being processed on board the drone, and you use the umbrella, for the Mavic Mini at least, you use the umbrella processor to do so.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Mavic 3 showcases, because, I saw the video from Casey Neistat on the Mavic Mini saying that he thinks the best drone hands down right now is the Mavic 2 Pro. And I would agree with him for photography, but not for videography and not for mapping. And I think it goes to show his lack of understanding of what it's like to be a real-world pilot, like most YouTubers. So that being said, I'm really excited to see the Mavic 3 because I think the Mavic Mini really serves the lowest common denominator when it comes to drone pilots. I mean, I have to say I've been trying to hack it every single way that there is because we've been flying it through our new race course here in the office. And I really didn't like that you could not turn off the obstacle avoidance sensors. And also, I don't like that there's no way to force Atti mode. Well, I figured out a way to turn off those things and force Atti mode. So I'll be putting out a video on how to hack the Mavic Mini here later. But it literally comes down to 2 pieces of tape. So on that bombshell, let's move into our next piece of drone news. Hiya, it looks like drones are saving lives once again. So what do you have here for us?
Yeah, this is another story from Estonia, where a 84-year-old man was found with a DJI Inspire 2 drone. Now, as you may remember, during DJI Airworks in Los Angeles this year, DJI announced that as far as they know, and they pretty much scan all the news outlets and local media, 279 people had their lives saved with the help of drones. This is back in October. That number is probably much closer to 300 at this point. And you could argue that it would include this story of the 84-year-old man that was reported missing. He had been missing for well over 48 hours. And in Estonia, just like here in New York, it's the fall season. Temperatures are dropping, especially at night. And they were able to find this man with a DJI Inspire 2 drone. I found that interesting as well. I mean, we haven't really heard that many stories in which the Inspire drones were used for search and rescue. As far as we know, in this story, there was no thermal camera. And that makes it even harder to pinpoint a human being, basically. And if you look at the photo that was shared on Twitter, where you see the missing person in bushes and in between small trees, you can see how impossibly hard it is to find somebody just with the naked eye. So I guess this guy's been extremely lucky that the drone pilot had such a good vision, I guess, to recognize that there was actually a human being there. I think a thermal camera would have been very helpful. Either way, this guy got extremely lucky. They found him. He was not undercooled, but his temperature had dropped for sure. However, they saved him in time, and he's well alive and safely back home now. So it's a good news story in that regard.
Yeah, definitely. The fact that drones are saving lives is just something that's so wonderful, because this technology is a tool, and it's just like fire. It can be used for good and it can be used for bad. Now, with that said, it looks like the government is finally on board. They're getting in the training game themselves. And while I think I could provide a lot of help in that game, I definitely don't have millions of dollars to set up the type of training that FEMA just had in Georgia. So what do you have, Hiya?
Yeah, this was a special 2-day event organized by GEMA and FEMA. So that will be the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, as well as the federal version of it. They had over 100 pilots, drone pilots, flying their drones, and they would do all different kinds of training missions. So some of them were missing persons missions, where they had set up along a lake a boat, and there was a little doll there that they would have to try and locate. They also had other missions as far as obstacle avoidance and barricaded gunman scenarios. So all different kinds of scenarios to train drone pilots. I think the big thing here is that over the last year, 2 years, we've really seen a massive adoption among first responders, fire departments, as well as police departments in starting to use drones and developing their own drone programs. To have over 100 drone pilots from different agencies together to do training missions really goes to show how drones are being adopted. And I think we'll see drones being used by these agencies at a much larger scale going forward into 2020.
For sure, and we're really excited too because we're about to launch our search and rescue course that's going to cover all different environments, lost person behavior. We're working with one of the kings of search and rescue, Gene Robinson. If you're not familiar, he was actually part of the EquiSearch lawsuit against the FAA when the FAA tried to shut him down after saving someone's life with a drone. So really excited ourselves because we think that there's a lot missing in these trainings. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. If you're not out there all the time, it's really hard to understand a lot of the problems that come up and arise. So really excited. And I think, honestly, I think FEMA just set the standard for public safety training, but not every agency has millions of dollars and a multi-million-dollar facility to go do this training. So while I think it's awesome, we also need to provide solutions for the smaller agencies as well. Really excited about that. Love the fact that more search and rescue, more agencies, more associations are getting involved with using drones. I really think, though, Haya, one big issue that we need to solve in this industry is setting the standard for operations.
I totally agree. And I think it's interesting as well. I mean, remember when we were at the New York Fire Department meeting, what was it, like 2 or 3 months ago? They already told us well that they started out with like large tether drones that I think ran about $80,000. And through the years, they migrated slowly to, or not slowly, fastly actually, to smaller drones like the DJI Mavic 2 Enterprise Dual. And I think 2020 should be a very, very interesting year for all these first responders. I mean, if there's a new Autel drone on the horizon, we know that Skydio is working on drones and is heavily targeting the first responders market as well. Of course, you have DJI's current offering and possibly also a Mavic 3 Pro next year. So I think we're going to see a lot of news stories come across our desk in the next year where people are being saved with the help of drones. And if these first responders are going to adopt more and more drones, then we'll see more of these stories and more people's lives saved. So I think that's great news.
I really do too. And I think it also really helps public perception because I still think there's a little bit of public perception that there's a drone, it must be spying on me. No, man, don't be that vain. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's really great. That being said, it looks like also drones continue to progress themselves, and even the racing and the FPV scene is progressing themselves as the racing league, or one of the most influential racing leagues, has decided to incorporate younger and younger pilots into their league. Haya, what's going on here?
Yeah, the Drone Racing League, they dropped their minimum pilot age to just 16 years old. And that's in line with Part 107 license, which is a requirement to participate in these races. But I mean, opening up and lowering the age limit basically to 16 years old, I think is great because it's going to allow so many more people to participate in these events. In the article that covers this story, it's being said that we have hundreds and thousands of people already using the simulator, getting ready to race their drones. So by lowering that bar, I think you're going to open it up to so many more young people who grew up with PlayStations and Xboxes, so they're already familiar with using remote controls. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what new talent is going to come out of this pool, and hopefully we'll see some new faces in the league next year.
Couldn't agree more. I'm really excited. I will say, if I were a 16-year-old, I would have to realize something. If I practiced every single day, I would literally have the jump on everyone over the age of 20 years old because they don't have the time, the money, or the resources to practice that much. So I really think that these younger kids actually have an edge on the older guys. So I think that's really exciting, and I love to see more competition no matter the industry. So very exciting. And now with our last piece of drone news, it looks like drones have discovered and have been exploring the world that we always think that we know, yet perception seems to always change and discoveries are constantly being made. Haya, what's going on as drones explore, well, the unexplorable?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, it seems like recently we've had a LiDAR story in our news show pretty much every week. This week is no different. This is one of the Channel Islands along the British coastline where they've used LiDAR on a drone to spot for a concentration camp from the German SS during the Second World War. And they had surveillance photos that were taken during the Second World War that actually showed the barricades and the fence and the outline of this camp. However, they were apparently never able to really pinpoint the exact location. So they now use drones with LiDAR radar systems to basically map out that area. And of course, with a LiDAR system, you can go straight through the vegetation. I mean, this area is pretty well overgrown. So it's when there's a video in this article as well. And if you see the location where the people are standing, it's very hard to make out any contours in the landscape, especially when we're talking about the contours from the Second World War, it being so long ago. So with LiDAR, they mapped this whole area. And sure enough, you can exactly see where the barricades were. You can exactly see where the fence used to be. And really, if you have a minute or two, go watch that video in the article on Drone DJ. It shows you exactly where all the different buildings were and the fence and the gun tower posts for security. And it's pretty fascinating. And again, it's not the first story that tells us about drones using LiDAR systems to map the world around us. It definitely won't be the last. And I think all of them are super fascinating because, they allow you to see things that otherwise would remain unseen for everybody, basically.
Yeah, no, I think it's really awesome. Well, Haya, thank you so much for bringing all these amazing stories. LiDAR is really interesting, actually. I really think if I were to make a prediction, I would say on the Inspire 3 or the new Matrice 300 series that we're expecting in the first quarter of next year, I would expect to see DJI come out with a LiDAR system. Now, whether they decide to work with one of the existing partners in the industry or whether they decide to copy Apple and once again suck up the environment or atmosphere or culture, what would you call it? The app environment, right? It's, how Apple says, okay, that's a great app idea. We're going to do it ourselves and just kind of, sucks to suck. I feel like we're going to see that same thing happen, or maybe DJI releases the MIMS LiDAR, right? The smaller, scalable LiDAR system that actually utilizes a spinning mirror instead of a spinning, laser. It would be really, really, really interesting to see what DJI comes out with. And frankly, that's got me really excited because once the price of LiDAR comes down, it's going to be, I would love to use it myself, but I don't want to spend $3,000 a day to rent a unit that may or may not work because some of these renters are not being clear and honest about how many returns the LiDAR unit gets and how far it actually shoots and how it actually writes the data. So frankly, I'm really excited for the evolution of the LiDAR market as a whole.
Oh, same here. I mean, if you look at the stories, right now it's only a handful of stories in which they use LiDAR to make these discoveries. I mean, if the price goes down on that equipment and you get more drones with LiDAR systems into the hands of more people, there's so much more to be discovered. And I think in that sense, it's going to be super interesting to see what comes next. And hopefully DJI will, if they don't come out with their own product, at least make it easier for other companies to make sure that their LiDAR systems work seamlessly with DJI platforms. I know DJI has been working on that. I mean, trying to make it easier to have third parties work with DJI platforms and get their tools and their sensors attached to these drones. So either way, I think we'll see more drones equipped with LiDAR in 2020 for sure.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Haya, thank you as the Flying Dutchman for joining me once again on another episode of News from Ask Drone U. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure being here again, Paul.
Well, I hope to see you again next week, Haya. And for all of those who listen, wherever you listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave us a review or share the show as it helps everyone, including yourself. How? Well, the more information that we all have, the more responsible that we fly, the more capacity that we will have in the future. By the way, just a quick reminder for everyone who did not see our show with Brendan Schulman from DJI, talking about remote ID and the drone to phone system, it's incredibly important that you watch that show, because in December, drone pilots will have an opportunity to voice their concerns about privacy, well, intentions, rights, and so much more. Let me ask you this one question. How would you feel if everyone in the public could see where you were flying, the pilot's location, your drone, record all of it, and be able to send any of that information wherever? Frankly, that makes me uncomfortable. I think the remote ID system should be a lot like license plates, where only LEOs or law enforcement can actually identify the person and the drone, more so the pilot's location. If that's something that matters to you, I highly recommend that you check out that show. And don't worry, Haya and I will be talking about this in future news shows to come. Thanks again for joining us, and make sure to check out that show. My name is Paul. He's the Flying Dutchman. This is Ask Drone U.